Right, evening everybody. It is Tuesday the 19th of April, I think. Tuesday 19th? Yes. I don't know why I doubted myself. It's not like I get everything else wrong. Right, okay, I'm going to try and be as quick as possible because my youngest daughter is currently upstairs with my wife with a 40-degree temperature, burning something horrible off. And it's probably an early night for everybody, so I'm going to try and crack two off quickly and then get back up to keeping both of them feeling warm and hopefully getting better. So first one I'm going to have is continue our lowland theme, and this particular one is not often mispronounced, but I have actually had somebody come up to me and say, have you got the one? I think it's called Auchentoshan. And it's this one, Auchentoshan. Now, this particular one was a donation from Mr. X, who was the kind donator that sent, I think it was about 36 miniatures in the end, but didn't want it to be known who it was, doesn't want me to mention it, so I'm just calling him Mr. X. So this was part of the selection that he sent to me. Now, this is a 10-year-old, and you can probably see on the camera, which is there, the packaging on there. Now, Auchentoshan in 2008 basically changed their range and their packaging, and what was the standard bottling that was a 10-year-old became a 12, and the packaging now looks like this as the 12-year-old. So this isn't the most recent version, clearly, but this used to be what was their representation, basically their entry level. They did have an unaged version that was called Select, but I can remember that wasn't particularly brilliant, whereas the 10 was pretty good. So Auchentoshan Distillery is here, just outside Glasgow. Because it's so close to Glasgow, it actually has it's quite a tourist attraction. So the visitor centre that's there, I think it was something like, it couldn't have been 20,000, maybe it was 200,000 visitors in a year, but it does a pretty decent trade because it's so close to Glasgow. Now there is a reference to a distillery called Duntoka in 1800, but Auchentoshan, or at the time that just after the license was produced for it in 1828 when the license was produced. In 1834 it was basically licensed as Auchentoshan, so it was Auchentoshan rather than Auchentoshan that it became, which was in 1934, I'm going to say, because in 1934 in World War II the Clydebank shipyards were quite close by, and they were bombed by the Germans, and essentially as collateral damage, part of the distillery was quite severely damaged, so they had to rebuild pretty much all of it at that time. Sorry, not 1934, 1948. 1934, they haven't even started then, you numpty. 1948, don't know where 34 came from. And at that time, it then became Auchentoshan with the E. So, in 1984, it was bought by Morrison & Bamore. It's had quite a few owners through before that time, and the origin of the distillery is, it's believed that it was Irish immigrants that set up essentially this illegal distillery called Duntoka that then became Auchentoshan. Now, linked to the Irish background and the Irish origin of it, Auchentoshan is at the moment, as far as I'm aware, the only distillery that does triple distillation. So not everywhere else in Scotland do double distillation, because if you take your mash and you start your distillation process, the first distillation that you do is still quite a low alcohol percentage and still has quite a lot of crap in it, for want of a better word. There is still parts of the mash that are going to be vaporized up like it's on a laser or something, but there is still part of that spirit that runs off. There are still bits in there, and there is still things that you need to clear out. Doing another distillation of that first spirit cleans it out, gives you a purer spirit, you get a higher alcohol percentage, and with the exception of Auchentoshan, is what they will then put into cask to become Scotch whisky. With Auchentoshan, you then do another distillation of that, you end up getting a higher alcohol percentage, and you get what could be considered a cleaner, purer spirit, but you start to actually take more of the flavour that's in that new make spirit out. So the more times you distill, you're getting more and more alcohol and less of everything else that's actually giving it like a core flavour. So that's why you tend not to find any, you certainly don't find quadruple distilling. I think I did read somewhere that somebody tried it. Bruichladdich, I think, tried a quadruple distilling, and it was basically getting to the stage of vodka. But Irish whiskey is quite big on triple distillation, and that's why you tend to find Irish whiskies generally are lighter in style, because it's had that extra distillation. So, bought by Morrison Bowmore in 1984. Morrison Bowmore ended up being part of Suntory, which is now Beam Suntory, who still own it. And like I say, in 2008, they completely relaunched, revamped the range, revamped the packaging, and changed it from a 10-year-old to a 12-year-old. Now they also do another one called Three Wood, where it's being matured in Oloroso sherry casks and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks and a bourbon cask, I think. Now the old Auchentoshan Three Wood was one of my all-time favourite whiskies. It was absolutely amazing, and it was a bargain for the price as well. They still do that. I still haven't had the new version of the Three Wood. So at some point I'm going to try and get hold of it, because it was phenomenal stuff. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a really good combination of quite a traditionally light, easy drinking whiskey. It's almost been dubbed a breakfast whiskey, which is just wrong in my mind anyway. But it was that light, easy drinking whiskey that really then could pick up all the flavours from those sherry and bourbon casks, and it was just, it was fantastic, absolutely wonderful stuff. So this is 40% and not peated at all, which is I suddenly realised, because the next one that I'm going to have is another peated lowland. Lowland whiskies, if you were to look on a map of kind of the regions, and we've got lowland whiskies and Speyside whiskies, and you have to say Speyside tastes like this, Highlands taste like this, Islay tastes like this. Lowlands, generally you would say, are light, fresh, easy drinking, and very delicate, and yet I'm gonna, at the end of tonight, I'll have had 4 lowlands and 3 of them have been peated, so it's just nonsense. You have to take this whole lowland style and the Speyside style with quite a pinch of salt, because they've all got individual characters. So, down to the whiskey itself. And it is light, there's a slight citrusiness on it. There's a very slight mintiness. A little bit of heather. But it's fresh, almost quite grassy as well. Again, light, grassiness is definitely there, particularly on the palate as well. It's got a nice smoothness to it, and what that triple distillation is doing is just lightening everything up. And it is a very, very easy drinking whiskey. There's a nice sweetness to it. There's a very gentle fudginess as well. There is a kind of, like when you go to the coast, if you go to a seaside resort and you've got these places that sell rock, and they tend to have got like loads of different versions of fudge as well, and all sorts of different flavours, and you kind of get like a chocolate mint choc fudge in a big thick bar like that. It's normally about £1, and it's got elements of that. There is a fudginess, there is actually a milk chocolate feel to it as well. There is a gentle mint, there is that sweetness as well. It's very much like that as well, just with a slight freshness to it as well. I wouldn't say it's like saltiness, but there is a gentle grassiness and kind of a clean, fresh air vibe to it as well. It's ridiculously easy to drink. There's not bags of flavour. It's not packed, crammed full of flavour, but what there is actually very, very pleasant. This is not going to offend anybody whatsoever. I can't remember if I've had the new 12-year-old. I don't think I have, but as long as it's not too dissimilar to this, I can imagine it's going to be absolutely brilliant. The couple of extra years might have even developed those flavours a little bit more. May have maybe knocked it back a little bit just with those extra 2 years in cask, but yeah, I would recommend it anyway. I would trust the owners to have done enough of the job by saying, yes, we're going to revamp it, but actually we're not going to change it too drastically, because they've got a really, really good whisky on their hands anyway. Wonderful stuff, that. Really, really like that. I've always liked Auchentoshan. I've always been a big fan of it. If you can get hold of the 3 wood, please do, because that was just phenomenal stuff. And again, it's in the new line. I don't think they've done too much to that at all, because it was so damn good on its own. Anyway, so that's another one down, and I'm just going to do a quick rinse out, and then we'll crack on with the next one. Cheers.